Well, happy good evening or good morning. I don't know. Depending on when you're catching
You were
this.
right the first time.
At some point, well, some people might be catching this
Oh, yeah,
later.
yeah. No,
But
I feel
of
you. I
course,
feel you.
those who are with us live, good evening to you guys. John Hendricks here alongside Ross Jackson for another episode of Second and Saints. Ross, my man, just fresh off of a Locked On Saints episode, and he comes over here. This is a busy man. How are you, man?
I'm great. I'm great, man. Living for it. Living for it. Absolutely love it. I've been looking forward to this all day. I think we had a very, very fun day at OTAs today. So very excited
Yeah.
to break it all down. How you
Yeah,
doing, man?
last OTAs. I'm good, man. Last OTA session. I mean, look, it brought us a lot of fun stuff and all that good stuff. But man, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It's a big week, a lot of stuff going on, and the weekend should be pretty fun. There's a lot of cool stuff coming there personally. So I mean, things are good. It's hot.
Yeah, man.
So that's the best part, right?
That's my favorite part.
Man, I'm talking about all these the players, man. This heat has been something else, dude. Like, I mean, even guys who've been here for years are like, oh my gosh. I was talking to Pete Warner in the locker room. He's like, man, I had to put aloe vera on because the dude is sunburnt to like the max.
Oh,
right?
no.
Like,
poor dude. It's his birthday today, too. That's awful.
Yeah.
What an awful way to spend it.
Oh man, I know. I'm not too far behind him either, so it's fun. So but look, guys, we've got a lot to talk about. Tons to talk about. I mean, last Saints OTA session before minicamp. Again, a lot of takeaways, a lot of good notes, a lot of fun stuff to kind of reflect on and kind of digest, if you will. And so if you haven't seen it, go to Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints, and then check out all the written observations if you want to know practically every detail. I had somebody saying, like, man, it felt like I was there. That's the goal, guys. I try to give you everything. Same thing with Ross. Try to give you as much information so you know what's going on, because there's no need in hiding it, first of all. And second of all, you need to know. You just need to know where everybody's at. And the people that always ask, well, where's this undrafted guy at? And I mean, he's in that report probably. So take a look.
Right.
But I guess what I would say is, Ross, your first impressions of our final OTA session, what kind of stood out to you the most?
Buy-in, man. I'm probably gonna be a little bit philosophical more than I'm gonna be like X's and O's here for a second. But I think the thing that really stood out to me was just buy-in. Like, everyone was talking, everybody was communicating, people were talking trash back and forth to one another. DeMario went out there and commanded better of the second team defense and got it. Also got better of the third team defense after he did that, because I wouldn't want DeMario coming and yelling at me either. It was great, man. Like, it's awesome. Like, to see it just feels. And I know we've said this every week, but we're saying it because it's true. It just feels so dramatically different than what we've become accustomed to over the course of the past couple of years. That, and I'm so excited to see Chris Olave's third year.
Man, you ain't lying, man. I'm with you. I think he's got a chance, and he was on NFL Network talking about he wants to go from good to elite. And I saw something where they put out, like, does he have the best hands? And I was watching those catches. I'm like, it's just an appreciation to being able to see those live. I mean, you saw all of those, right? We saw the one against the Vikings, the Falcons, all those
Green
different
Bay,
he makes.
Carolina,
Green Bay. I mean,
Houston.
dude, he's a beast. He has a chance. And look, go back on past episodes. We've talked about him as wide receiver one. And of course, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. You guys have been fantastic. But I think Olave is a guy that, he looks the part. I think what I appreciate most, and I've pointed this out a couple of things. And let me first say this, because I've already seen some of the comments. He was in a red non-contact jersey after drills, because he tweaked his shoulder a few weeks ago in the weight room, but he was fine. He was out there running routes, catching. Like, you would have swore he wasn't. There was nothing wrong.
There's nothing that I saw that. Yeah.
No need to hit the panic button. But talking about Olave, man, I think some of the things I highlighted before is, early on, there was a hookup that missed from Carr. And I pointed out that Carr went over there and make it a point to talk to Olave. This is like week one. Today, same page. They're celebrating afterwards. You pointed out the vibes of this OTAs. And yes, it is the start of a fresh season. But again, I feel it's so different. And I've talked to so many players that have literally just said, man, last year was tough on us. And then they've come in this year. I think they've got most everybody bought into to what they're trying to do. And, I think it's obviously a different vibe. I tell you what, the defensive players are excited to see this new offense. The offensive players are excited to see this new offense too. So I mean, it's a good welcome change. But man, I think going back to Olave, that he has the potential to be really special in this offense. And again, it's a pick your poison. I think the Saints can have so many weapons to be able to beat you with, and Clint Kubiak could maximize that for him.
Yep. And now we're seeing Cedric Wilson really get into the fold as
Mm,
well as like a big slot option. John, you and I were talking about how like what we're seeing from this offense so far in terms of where players, just the simple stuff in terms of like where players are lining up, the types of routes that they're being asked to run, all these other things. You're just watching these players be put in position to do the things that they're good at doing. And that
right.
is it. That's light years beyond what you would see from a bad offense. And I think that like the Saints have done a good job of that for a while. And maybe they've had some missteps along the way, but that was always a big thing for Sean Payton too, was how do we put these players in position to do what it is that they do well? But I think we're really seeing it in Clint Kubiak's offense, not only from the deployment in terms of like how they're being targeted, how often they're being targeted, all these other things, but simply where they're lining up, what they're being asked to run, where they're being asked to have an impact, all these other things. And I think that alone goes a long way. Like if you want to develop some expectations around this offense, that's one of the ones that I think helps you develop some positive expectations. Look at all the places that they're using Taysom Hill. Look at the way that they're running Kendre Miller versus the way that they're running Jamaal Williams. Look at the way that they're using Cedric Wilson where he should be used. Some of the stuff that we saw them do with Rashid Shaheed was exciting today. Like there's all of those little pieces that I think are going a much longer way for this team in terms of developing its expectations. And it's just making the defense better as well.
Yeah, what a novel concept of putting your best players in a position to succeed. I mean, what a
Who'd
novel
have thunk?
concept. Yeah,
Who'd have thunk?
like I mean, checks notes is smart. That's a smart thing, right? That's a smart thing, football,
Right.
that's our hard hitting analysis for tonight. But I mean, you
Hashtag
got something
analysis.
there. Yeah, hashtag analysis. And guys, there's some questions popping. I want to get to those in a second. But I mean, again, you look at this offense. I think when you look at it, and again, not to deviate from everything, I think the only thing that might hold them back is the offensive line at this point, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
feel good right now about where this line is at, as opposed to where I felt a month ago or even a month and a half ago. I think we had the
Yeah.
concept, but I feel like not just the Fuanga and the Trevor Penning stuff, which again, he looks confident, he looks like it, and we'll know when they get into pads for training camp, but I like the depth there. I like the Lucas Patricks. I like the
Yes.
Oli Udo. I like the
Yep.
Landon Young still over there, or all the some of the undrafted guys they got. I mean, Shane Lemieux. I think it has the potential to be pretty good, but I think that's the only thing, because we've talked about it, Roz. You got to have an offensive line to make this Kubiak system work, and you see
Yep.
so much motion. We saw Taysom, the speed option today. We see
Jeez, man.
just
Yeah.
the shifts. I mean, that one play where they had 3-player shift. I mean, and it tripped up the Saints defense. That's what you want to see. And again, I talked to Jordan Howden a little bit in the locker room, and he was saying is like that's stuff that gets them excited. Just being able to see those types of things, because that's what most of these offenses are doing now. I mean, so again, I think the only thing that might hold them back is the offensive line, but I feel like that's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I'm still a little bit more lukewarm on the offensive line so far. I saw Trevor
Makes
Penning
sense.
down on the ground a couple more times again
True.
today and stuff like that. And I think that's something that's fixable though. Like I guess I could sit here and nitpick, but like all of it's fixable and stuff like that. And it just takes time. But I still haven't seen enough just yet. And some of it is not the offensive line's fault. Some of it is that we haven't seen them try to actually stop somebody from tackling somebody, right? We've only seen the practice stuff, just like you mentioned. Like once they get the pads on, then I think we'll get another opportunity to see it. So I'm kind of sitting back and I'm going, okay, something's on the way there. They're figuring out where their best players, where their best options can be. I've been really impressed with Nick Saldiveri. And so I'm feeling pretty good. He again took all the first team left guard snaps
Huge
this week, just like last week. So that just shows more progress towards him potentially being the new starting left guard. We'll see where that goes over time. But I'm still a little lukewarm on it. I want to see how it all comes together, but I think that the scheme helps a ton. What I will say is that the offensive line is moving. Like they are moving. They're climbing up to the second level. They're getting to the outside. They're exploding off the ball. All these other things. Those are the stuffs. Those are the stuffs. Those are the things. That's the stuff that I'm really, really excited to see how it continues to grow. But I'm still side eyeing a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit because I want to see it. I just want to see it come together. That's all.
No, I'm with you. And for those, I mean, again, hard hitting analysis. If you want to score points with Nick Saldiveri, I was talking to today, of course, football, right? He's yet to find a really nice Italian restaurant in New Orleans. So if you guys have recommendations, please send them.
He's got to go to Avondale. He's got to go to Avondale.
See, there you go. Ross Jackson. So Nick Saldiveri, in the off chance, the minute chance that you're watching, there's your spot, right? But no, I think you're right on the offensive line, though, being serious. Like, again, we're not going to know until pass because, look, I even said this with caution like a couple episodes ago about Carl Granderson had all these sacks, and this is a reason to be excited. Like, a prime example today was Trajan Jeffcoat was all over the place on 3 straight plays. He's quarterback pressures, tackle for loss.
Yeah, right.
But with blocking, we're really going to see is a Trajan Jeffcoat as good as what we saw. I think he has the potential there, but I with caution, temper your expectations. Once the pad comes on, and that's when we'll really know. And then they play against San Francisco, or they have the joint practices, so we're really going to know. So I think it's coming, but obviously, we'll get that 3-day mini camp. We still know like major like contact like you would with training camps, and even when you get to training camps, the full pads are on. That's when the hitting starts, all that fun stuff. So we'll get our answer then very quickly. But good to see that though. Troy asked us a question. Do you think the age of the team is showing up out there? I don't know what aspect. I don't know in where, but I think like guys like Cam aren't participating in team drills, but I don't think Cam's been totally cleared yet. But DeMario's out there. I think in fairness, they shed a lot of the older guys, quote unquote, right? And so I
really
think
your plus 30 guys are what? Carr, DeMario, Cam, Tyron.
Yeah. And Tyron wasn't out there because of a family related issue. So we'll get an attendance here shortly. But yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would say
I don't know. I don't.
It's a good thing.
I think
good question.
But it brings up a point because Dennis Allen talked about it in his presser that the Saints do feel like they're doing a good job developing some of these young guys, and I think for the most part they are doing a pretty good job. Like I think part of it is on the player, but like something that Dennis Allen had said about like A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry just needs to come in every day, work, and listen to your coaches.
Yep.
I think that's probably some of the best advice because a guy like A.T. Perry could be extremely, elevated in this offense. And if he keeps doing that and listening, you've got a great wide receivers coach in Keith Williams. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want to listen to this guy, but man, he's something special. Perry can be, and Keith Williams, obviously, we talked about it. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check out Ross's article on Saints News Network. Shameless plug. He wrote about Keith Williams and his inspiration for the rugby balls. He's done the story about it. This is the stuff that nobody cares about or anything like that. But I promise you, if you read it, you will get informed.
Thanks, John.
That's the whole point. Well, I'm just saying,
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I know. I'm messing with you.
Yeah,
too easy.
Sure.
Too easy.
too close, man. But for sure. But again, I that's the thing is that Keith is doing a good job with those guys. I think the thing that continues to show up is the offensive coaches. How authoritative a guy like Andrew Janocko is, or Keith Williams. I mean, this has been the tempo of this practice, and so it's a welcome change from what we've been sitting through. And that again, that's not a shot, but it's been good.
And you have a whole room, you have a whole coaching staff now of developers at the position coaches, right? I mean, Clancy Barrone's one of the best. He's got 5, like a handful of Hall of Famers that he's coached at the tight end spot. Keith Williams, clearly an outstanding developer. You can see it when we're out there. Janocko, as you mentioned, John Benton has pulled together some of the better offensive lines in the NFL in his time. Like you just kind of see it all the way through. And then you have Clint Kubiak, who then gets to kind of sit back and be the scheme god, you know what I mean? And I like worry about what's going to happen in terms of like the offensive scheme and everything like that. Like there's a good balance. Like there's a symbiosis or a symmetry that I don't think that we've seen on the coaching staff on the offensive side for a while.
Yeah, and you got Rick Dennison in there too, the new
Right? Yeah, it
senior
help with the run
offensive
game
assistant.
and help with the offensive line. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they can put it together, I think it's good. But I
Yep.
think fans are at this point now where you've seen this for the past couple of years. You want to see it on the field, and not just
Yep.
see it. It has to be consistent, because they
It's
can't
got to
go in
show
this
up.
to
Yep.
where you show up week 1, then you drop the next 2, and you show up again, and then you drop the next 2, and
Yeah, the
it's just
roller
this
coaster.
cycle. And we've pointed it out that they have to beat some good teams this year. That's the difference between them getting 10 wins and 11 wins. You got to beat a Dallas. You got to beat a Philly this year. You got to beat a Kansas City. You're going to have some of those opponents. You got to beat the Rams. I mean, there are some opponents that they got to beat this year, and it's only going to take it's going to take a village, right? You got to have a good offense and good scheme, and defensively, you can't fall off the wayside. But I feel like the pieces on paper could be there, but remains to be seen, because look, we're in June 5th. We've got a long ways to go until September 6th or 7th is when the season starts. And so you got 3 months, right? And so I think that's a big deal to check out. We got some Italian restaurants for you, Nick Saldivari.
That's a great one.
Ristorante Filippo and Mestre.
I was thinking about Mosca's. I guess it's technically like West Wego, but like it's this little like white building in the middle of nowhere. It's like the only thing around where it is, and it's incredible, and it's like authentic. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I will tell you another one too, just because football, but Spitali's makes a mean chicken parm.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so for sure. So go see it. We know Nick Saldivari.
There you go, Nick. There you go, Nick Saldivari. We got you, dog.
Oh man, we're gonna get into attendance again, and we're gonna get into OTA stuff. But we're talking OTAs while we're not actually talking OTAs. But a good question.
Yeah, we hit the big storylines.
Bryan Bresee taking a big leap this year, and does Payton Turner look healthy? The second part of the question, yes, Payton Turner does look good. He looks healthy. He's in on a couple of plays, like he's showing up. So is Isaiah Foskey. Learned today that he had been working with at Pittsburgh with the same defensive line coach as Aaron Donald. So he's definitely making an effort and doing some things there. But Bresee, yes, absolutely see him taking a big leap this year. I mean, I don't think it's even a question. Was so good his first season, and just in so many different ways, not just getting after the quarterback, but just whatever they asked of him. He was just like a sponge, and they hit that first round pick. I know they don't hit those first round picks a lot, but that was one they nailed.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know if he takes a big leap, but it's only because he doesn't have to. Like, I thought his rookie season was really, really solid. What was it, 4.5, 5.5 sacks? And so for me, I think the thing about him is, can he just be consistent? Like, can he bring that again and maybe take a little leap, right? Maybe take a little step up and everything like that. And so if he gets to, I think if you look at the sack numbers, if he gets up to 6 sacks, that's awesome. But I think for me, it's about getting the pressure in the middle, helping to stop the run, helping to take up some double teams on the interior to create one-on-ones on the other side. And so the way that he has to take a leap, quote unquote, probably won't be through his stats. It's probably going to be through how does he open up opportunities for other players on the defensive line around him. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. So that won't be seen as a big leap probably, but it would have a big impact, I think, going into his second year, if that makes sense.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. And look, they need Payton Turner to be healthy. He's got to do, like we've talked about it plenty on those episodes. Again, shameless plug, go check the past episodes. We put the timestamps in there. So if you want to know exactly where you need to go to the previous episodes and check those out. Dude, got them all there for you on Second and Saints. 2-part question, or same question, but how's Willie Gay looking out there is the question we got from Brantley. And then also, how does the linebacking core look? I'll just say Willie Gay Jr. is as advertised and fast and energetic and all the things that I think Saints fans are going to absolutely love. Like, you could see why this guy was loved in Kansas City. I mean, he got his own dedication post on Twitter.
Right. Off a rookie contract.
I mean, this is incredible. Pretty crazy. But yeah, I think he looks great. And I think from the linebacking core perspective, I think they're a little bit better there than I thought, because I think guys like Khaleke Hudson, again, they're going to be a big role player. And we've talked about this linebacking core, but I think beyond that, like the Anthony Orges or the DeMarco Jacksons or Monty Rice, guys that are
Monty
playing a
Rice.
little bit more in special teams. I think they have the potential there. Jalen Ford getting out on the field, and he's been doing this kind of warm up, ramp up period, quote unquote. But he got involved in some special teams drills today, and so I think their linebacking core. The only thing I think that I might worry and it's crazy because I saw they had ranked some tandems and they put Willie Gay Jr. and Demario Davis. They kind of just totally forgot about Pete Werner. But I think that's the thing is Werner in coverage. That's what I'm kind of wanting to see a little bit because they picked on him a little bit in OTAs before. But again, your thoughts on the linebacking core, where do they stand, and are you as optimistic as I am?
Yeah, I think this is the unit. This is a unit where I am as optimistic as you are, and I'm not as lukewarm as I am. Like I'm warmer on the linebacking core than I am on the offensive line. Here's what I will say. I think it's the deepest I've seen the linebacker room in a long time. It helps to have 3 guys that can start. First of all, really 4. Like I would put Khaleke Hudson in that category too, because I loved watching Khaleke when he was with Washington. And so I thought he got some starts there. I thought he was a starting caliber guy, but I'll just say 3. But having 3 bona fide starters right away, and then the return of Nephi Sewell will eventually add to that too. He's a guy was starter caliber last year. And everything, if he can maintain that, I think it's the deepest I've seen the linebacking core in a while. And so that's what I'll give it credit for. You've got your starters, but you've got guys that you wouldn't mind necessarily having to step in at some point. Obviously, going from DeMario to anybody is a big drop, right? So that's the one caveat to that. But I think otherwise, like if you saw DeMario and Pete next to one another, you saw DeMario and Willie Gay next to one another, you saw DeMario and Nephi Sewell next to one another, you'd feel pretty good about that in any case. And so I think that's the thing that really stands out to me is that it's deep. We'll see what it looks like. I think we're going to see a lot more 3 linebacker sets, by the way.
Hey, segue question
there you go.
here.
Hey,
could you see
them actually, let's get to this question
4-3?
First and then I'll do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, but I was going to say, you were talking about it, but perfect time to answer this question. Could they play more 4-3 because of Willie Gay Jr.?
Absolutely. And I think it's more than that. I wrote about this, so I'll do a shameless plug now. I wrote about this over at Saints News Network as well, to where Dennis Allen was on the Rich Eisen show, and he talked about how the team was going to use more 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. If you don't remember, first digit is the number of running back, second digit is the number of tight ends. And then the rest out of 5 is the number of wide receivers typically. So 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, or 21 personnel, because he talked about utilization of the fullback, which we have seen a lot of and saw a lot of again today, John, out there. And that's the trend of the NFL. Teams last year in 2023 ran the most 2 tight end sets percentage-wise since Next Gen Stats started tracking that back in 2016. We've also seen a lot more. You look at the Green Bay Packers, the Denver Broncos, and other teams that were at the forefront of this. There is the big sort of swath of or increase in 2 running back sets. Green Bay's leading the way on this right now. And one of the reasons why is because offenses reset the expectation to create lighter defenses. We saw more of those 11 personnels with 3 wide receivers or even 4 or 5 wide receiver sets. Defenses were getting forced and they're getting lighter, hybrid linebackers, nickel corners, nickel safeties, all this other stuff. And then now the offenses in the NFL are going, they're really light over there. We should use more big guys. And then now they're all using more big guys. So because of that, I think you're going to see a little bit of a switch now over to defenses having to respond to that. So not only will Willie Gay make it viable for them to use more 4-3 sets, they might be required to use more 4-3 sets, which is one of the things that made Willie Gay a target for the team.
You remember when the Packers had Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs on the same roster for like 5 minutes? Speaking of 2 running backs, I don't know why they didn't make that work.
Go with it. Go with it.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess they really like AJ Dillon or Davis, but like,
Dillon's a different back for sure in some aspects, but again, I don't know. I don't run that team, obviously, or not sure, but that was a little bit shocking because Jones was really good, but Josh Jacobs leaving was also a surprise too. Sticking along the running back questions and such, or running back talk, should we expect a bounce back year for Jamaal Williams, and will they bring in somebody from the UFL? Second part is, yeah, I think so. I think the
Yeah, I
UFL
would
is going to
imagine so.
obviously some extra people. I don't know who. I mean, you think about last year, that's how they got Jack Heflin because of the Bill Johnson
Yep.
connection. They had a few guys that came over from that. So I think the short answer is yes, they will. And they're not done in free agency, as we kind of said last week. Expect it to happen a little bit more closer to training camp, but we're in that window post June 1st because now the Jameis thing, the Michael Thomas thing, all that other stuff is off the books or whatever, or not really off the books, but it's the post June 1st era. But Jamaal Williams, man, he's facing a important year. I think for all intents and purposes, it was a disappointing year, but again, a guy that does everything it's asked of him and then some. We saw him today fielding kick returns. We saw him as the personal punt protector today. Try saying that 3 times fast. I mean, he's doing a little bit of everything, but I think we've talked about this before. Does this offense play to a Jamaal Williams? Can he have a bounce back year, or is he going to be somebody that's on the outside looking in? Because we've seen guys like Jordan Mims take some red zone snaps, and he's starting to get a lot more love. And we've talked about Jordan Mims on this show too. But is this offense a fit for Jamaal Williams?
Yeah, I think it still is. And I think that the definition of bounce back depends on what you're trying to get at, what you think like him bouncing back to is. If the idea of a bounce back is that he matches another 17 touchdown season, then the answer is no. But if a bounce back season is that he scores more than more than one touchdown, has a more defined role in 2024 than he had in 2023, that doesn't necessarily make him just a pass protector, which was a lot of what he spent his 2023 time doing, then I think you could say yes. I think he still has a role because, as we've discussed on the show before, with the wide zone offense, even though you're doing more of those zone runs, and zone run just meaning that offensive linemen are blocking areas as opposed to blocking people, and you're trying to create lanes that way, it doesn't mean that you're running zone run 70, 80, 90% of the time. You're probably just running it slightly over 50, maybe into the conversation of 60% of the time. So at least 40% of the time, you still got to be able to man up and run. You still got to be able to run between the tackles. You still got to be able to utilize short yardage situations that can't all just be Taysom Hill. So I think that that's where he absolutely still has a role. And so the bounce back for me would be, can he score more than he did last year? Can he contribute more than he did last year? All of that. I think the answer to that is yes, because the role could be there. He's just got to earn the spot first. And I don't think it should be hard for him to do that. But I think that's going to be the deciding factor, is just, how he's utilized, rather than will he be utilized at all?
Yeah. And I mean, let's also point out, the things that don't show up on a stat sheet, but he's the blitz pickup guy. He's the guy that's taking, protecting Carr or whoever's playing quarterback
or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and that obviously matters. I had a firm appreciation from Mark Ingram because, man, he could do it really well and stuff like that.
Latavius too.
A guy that could just run. Latavius was strong at it as well. And so, I mean, again, that matters, but I think the bottom line is, yes, he can. We've talked about it that Kendre Miller probably should have the most touches by the end of the year. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on Alvin and where he's at. I think Alvin could do really well. I think we said last week, I said Kendre is going to have more reception yards. You said Kamara is going to have more rushing yards. So I think that's a fair take for sure. Yeah, so we'll see. But I think the sky's the limit for almost everybody in this offense. And you mentioned Taysom Hill. I don't want to go there yet, but he's doing some exciting things in the backfield these days. So I'm excited to see what that happens. We'll touch on this because, again, we didn't really talk about it. So we can run through it before we get to this question. But I did want to get to this question because it does talk. It was important to talk about the quarterbacks, but not much on the changes from attendance. Now, here's the thing is that some of these guys are dealing with injuries. Now, I'm not going to sit here and speculate, but guys like Stanley Morgan Jr., Nathan Latu, they're in the locker room, but they're obviously not on the field. So that's typically a sign that they have gone through or going through something. We don't know exactly. Or a guy like Tommy Hudson, who also missed, was in the locker room. So, I mean, some of these guys you see, but guys that weren't there, weren't in the same zip code or anything like that. So Lattimore obviously wasn't there. Paulson Adebo wasn't there for second straight week. Again, if he's not there for minicamp, I think we said this last week, we'll worry a little bit more if he's not there. McKinstry, Kool-Aid, he was getting closer. He's getting closer, and we could see him in some walkthroughs next week, but he's obviously one in the locker room and can't wait to see what he's able to do. I mean, every coach we talk to, whether it's M-Rob or Joe Woods, this dude has potential. I mean, potential. And we even said this today, like we were talking about the kickoff stuff, and there's some questions about kickoff rules. We'll get into it, but I could see him on that kickoff team getting some kick returns.
Oh yeah,
I think it'd be absolutely a no-brainer for him as a rookie. But I digress. Alvin Kamara wasn't there. He was in Florida last I checked. Nephi Sewell, Latu we just talked about, and Ryan Ramczyk, Tommy Hudson I pointed out. Tano, we know towards Achilles. He won't be in the picture anytime soon. Going to be interesting to see what they do with him too, because I think the IR rules obviously have changed a little bit, so they could put him on, but there's no longer this. You put them in IR in camp or whatever, and then they're out for the year. Like that's the only other thing. They just kind of changed up that rule. Nathan Shepard wasn't there again. He was missed last week due to family related issues. And then Chase Young, who's been in the building. We talked about it last week. They said it today. Dennis Allen said it again, but we said this on last week. You guys pay attention to us. We kind of know a little bit, but Young's trending in the right direction. So we said that last week, and then it comes out this week. And then Tyron, we talked about family-related absence. Again, talking about attendance, and again, we're going to get to these other questions, but Marshon Lattimore, it is Dennis Allen's expectation. It's 100% attendance. That's why they call it mandatory. But his expectation is that Marshon's there for the 3-day minicamp. So do you foresee that actually coming true? Or is there going to be a situation where he's not going to be there and he's going to just get fined?
I don't know. I don't know. It seems, though, that Dennis Allen expects him to be there. I talked to Marcus Robertson along with a couple of other reporters while DA was at the podium. Coach Robertson expects him to be there also. So I would say that the only thing that I could safely say is that the expectation is that he'll be there. But look, the mandatory tag on mini camps and the fine is different than the fine would be in training camp if you don't show up. It hasn't always made players show up just because they get fined and it's technically mandatory. So we'll see which way it all goes. I am, if I'm going by what the expectations are saying, then yes, he'll be there next week. But do I know for sure? No. So we'll find out. But certainly would be a really, really good sign for Marshon, would be a really, really good sign for his relationship with the organization to be there next week. So we'll see which way that it goes.
Yeah. And again, this is a point where I wrote about it. We talked about it, but next week you'll know who's dealing with injuries and who's not, because they're not out on the field. We kind of get an idea of what's going on. So I think while we don't know some of the specifics, some of them, and again, I'm not going to sit here and speculate, but if you put 2 and 2 together, then there's a good chance that that's what's going on. And this question, so let's talk about quarterbacks. Is Nate Peterman ready to hush the Rattler crowd? Not based off of today, that's for sure. But I will say this: Spencer Rattler had a much better day. Obviously, his best day for sure. That connection for a touchdown in the back of the end zone to Cedric Wilson was beautiful. I think he was great. Now, he did struggle in the red zone. That was tough. That was when Trajan Jeffcoat was like everywhere on 3 straight plays. But, Spencer Rattler did a pretty good job. Now, again, this is the rotation at first was, Carr, Haener, then Peterman, but then Rattler came in. But when we did team, Peterman didn't get any team reps or any of the red zone reps, really. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to say this because – go ahead.
I was going to say, even with the 7-on-7s, when they did bring Peterman in, the way that they did it was that they gave Carr 4 snaps, they gave Haener 3, and then Peterman 1, and then Rattler 3, and then Peterman 1. So, like, technically Peterman took a snap before Rattler did, but Rattler ended up with more snaps than Peterman. So I think that there's something to be said there. But yeah, the order was a little bit different in 7-on-7s, but then in team, Peterman didn't take any snaps, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And so again, people are eating up this quote about Dennis Allen on the Rich Eisen show. And look, that was so irresponsible for them to say that there's an open competition with Derek Carr. Like, guys, come on, don't kid yourself. Like, I think Spencer Rattler can be something special. We've said that already, but to sit here and think that he's going to unseat Derek Carr, like, Carr's DA's guy, first of all. That's not happening. Yeah. Carr is their guy. I mean, that's who's going to be QB1. Now, if Carr gets hurt, we talked about it, but I still don't think people should sleep on Jake Haener. I think Jake Haener is looking at him in drills. His footwork is outstanding right now. He's just, you can see it. And again, like I said, the previous week, every rookie from last year you talk to this year, the game slows down and Haener looks a lot more confident. You see his throws, like there are some pretty throws that he makes,
Yeah,
right? I
man.
mean, there's just some that he threads them in. And so again, can he put it together in the preseason? I think that's going to be the telltale for me. But again, the quarterback room, just talking about that Rattler stuff. I mean, I've seen it spread. I try so hard not to, to burst people's bubbles, but it's just not going to happen right now. So,
yeah. Give
so
it time.
anyways, give it time. It could happen one day, but the Angels in the outfield, hey, it could happen, But okay, so let's get here because we got kind of two same questions, and there's another one, but one about the new kickoff rules, which we have explained a little bit on previous episodes. Again, I have to pull up a new one, but how can the change the 53-man roster? And this again, could that change the perspective of special teams? The short answer is yes. It will. And the thing is, Darren Rizzi, and I pointed this out. I think it was rookie minicamp or no, it was OTAs. We talked to him and said just the combination is they're trying everybody under the sun out at the position because there's no telling what type of cover unit you're going to see. And you saw what Kansas City's doing with Justin Reed, right? And so that's obviously a big thing. And I think for the Saints, it's you got to figure it out. And they got the best man to do it, but there is going to be a lot more emphasis that Rizzi's already said that they're going to put on this new kickoff rule. And it's exciting because you're seeing Charlie Smyth, which we'll talk about him in a little bit, probably, I'm sure, and didn't have a great day, but his kickoffs, the way the trajectory is of the ball and then the running start to field a kick. And it just brings a new element that's so exciting. And so, do you want to explain the kickoff rule or how it works? And again, I think it's going to shape the landscape of different personnel, and it could mean the difference between a few extra DBs or depending on what you're looking in your cover unit and your kick return unit.
Yep. And just give a little bit more detail in case you didn't know about the Chiefs and Justin Reed thing. Justin Reed's a safety that can kick. And so they're considering they were working him out to do the kickoffs so that they have an extra tackler there. Because basically the way that this all works now is that the blockers and those that are trying to tackle, right, those that are trying to cover the kick, line up within 5 yards of one another, effectively 5 to 8 or so yards of one another. The kickoff is now much closer. So there's less distance to cover with the kick, which might make you think, oh, well, then you could just kick it out of the end zone even easier. But basically what the NFL has done is that it's incentivized the return. So if you kick a football out of the back of the end zone or you kick it for a touchback, that ball now advances not to the 25, but the 35. And so then what it's doing is that it's incentivizing kickoffs. And because the coverage unit is starting much closer, the coverage unit cannot move until the returner has fielded the football, right? Once he catches the football, then they can go start to pursue. And then with that, you might think, oh, well, that means that returner gets so much opportunity to return before there's anybody there. But really, everything still kind of happens right around the 25-yard line. So it's working out the way that you would expect it to work out. The other thing that I think that this ends up changing quite a bit is that you now have to have two returners back there. You're not going to put one guy in the middle and then have him try to get to one side or the other with a shorter kickoff length, right? Shorter kickoff kind of dimension. And so because of that, we saw 4 different pairs of return partners back there, led off by Rashid Shaheed on one side and Taysom Hill on the other side, because he's not doing enough yet, right? And so it was cool to see. So basically the idea is that you're kind of going to have, or at least what they were practicing today, is a left returner and a right returner, which I think makes the game even more exciting as well, because you're not watching the same person return every time. And because of that, you're going to have, it becomes a little bit more challenging for that coverage team to cover, because this person has these tendencies, this person has these tendencies, and you have to be ready for both of those. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really, really excited for the way that it works out.
Yeah, and if you kick a touchback this year, it's a 35-yard line is where people start. So, I mean, it's a little bit different, right? So, we'll see. But I think it's a big deal, and it's something that I think, Riz even said this too, is expect a lot of penalties in preseason. I mean, it's just going to look like nobody knows what they're doing, I think. But, again, hopefully they know what the rules are, not like the 49ers in overtime, right? Like we talked about earlier
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for real. Hopefully they get it right by the Super Bowl this time.
Yeah, right.
The thing that I will say is that like the kickoff has been dead for the last couple of years, basically.
Yes.
And so this revitalizes the kickoff, in my opinion. This brings the kickoff return back to the game. Otherwise, you're just going to keep kicking out of the end zone and nobody's returning anything, and they just deal with, starting at the 25, and it's all good. So this actually brings the kick return back to the game and also makes it safer. You don't have the full speed collisions and all those other things. It definitely helps. And so I'm all about this change for the NFL. And I think it's going to pay dividends because it's going to make kick returners, it's going to make them matter again. It's going to make them a part of the game again. And I think that we've been missing that over the course of the past few years. And so to me, this is a really good solution, or at least starting place to figure out what the overall permanent solution does become if it's not this. But I'm very confident in this new rule.
Yeah, I mean, it's become the new bathroom break. I mean, that's literally what it's become. There's nothing going on.
Yep.
Let me go use the bathroom. And so I think that's telling of how that's played out. But I'm looking forward to it because I think there's a lot of different things that it could bring. And so we'll see as always. But I feel good about seeing more action in a guy like Rashid. And it's not just Rashid, but I mean, other teams are going to have that option where it's going to be a kind of a nightmare to cover. And so we'll see. I don't know if the Saints have another kicker weapon, although we did see Colin Saunders punt the ball really well.
That wasn't that bad. That was like one of the first things we saw today. Yeah. He came running out there. He first was running. He first was running with the football. Like he's trying to remind everybody he used to be a running back still.
Yeah.
And he
exactly.
punted that mug. That was nice.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. He's good. Another question, kind of the same lines. Let's talk Jordan Howden. What do y'all think of the safety safety depth, and Howden's further development? And is it stamped that Jordan Howden would be the starting safety? Don't be sorry for the questions. That's why we're here. We want to get to them and all that stuff. Please ask questions. That helps us. And we don't have an agenda. We don't have we got to hit A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We don't have that. So, what I'll say first about Howden is he's bulked up this offseason. They want him to play more in the box is what I've been told. And why we're not really seeing him right now is he had off-season surgery. So he's getting close to returning, but it's something that he had to address this offseason. But it's something that was lingering from college, but he played through it and he should be good to go. But there's some info for you guys that, Howden, that's why you're not seeing him a lot, but bulked up this offseason, and again, he's going to be a big part, and they want to use him in the box. So I think he could be a starter. I think his development, man, he's got all the confidence in the world, man. Ross, I think when we talk to, I don't want to speak prematurely, but like when we talked to all the rookies last year, I think this is the one that felt like he just was a sponge. He was tough on himself. Even he's like, man, I didn't make that play or this. Like he's probably one of the I don't want to say, I don't know what the word is, but just the way he carries himself, his demeanor. They drafted a guy who is the perfect mold for a coach, right? And he can bring his skills to the table. So your thoughts on Howden?
He's an incredibly mature dude. When I spoke with Marcus Robertson about him last year, first of all, one of the things that Marcus Robertson told me was, we're going to be talking about that. I was going to go back to him in a couple of years, and we're going to be talking about how good Jordan Howden is. So a big vote of confidence there. The other thing was that when Marcus Robertson went to go and see, it was Jordan Howden, and then it was another Minnesota Golden Gophers teammate that was entering the draft that year. Not Tyler Newman from this year. It was another defensive back from last year that came out at the same time as Jordan Howden. That Marcus Robertson sent Jordan Howden the list of like 10 to 20 things, 10 to 15 things that they needed. They needed cones to do workout drills. They needed footballs. They needed a space where they could do those workouts. They needed a film room. They needed access to film, all these other things, right? They needed a place to eat, right? To go to dinner together and all this stuff. All of that stuff he gave to Jordan Howden and said, you set it up. And he didn't miss anything off that list. And that was one of the things that Marcus Robertson loved about him. So when I say that, you might be saying to yourself like, well, Ross, what the heck does that have to do with football? It has everything to do with football because it's attention to detail, right? It's attention to detail, it's maturity, it's responsibility, all of those other things. And when you talk about responsibility, safety is a big time responsibility position. Trust me, as somebody that played it and was awful at it, a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility. I was much better at corner than I was at safety, John.
Man.
And so
I was DT. That was where I was because
there
a
you
little
go.
bit of a porker in 4th grade, but hey, whatever.
I was wide receiver, corner. Those are things. And I was wide receiver, safety for a little while, but not for long. And I was a returner for a play. I'll tell you that story someday. But that hurt. So yeah, I think like what you're looking for when it comes to development is like, do you have the foundation upon which to develop? And I think that Jordan Howden absolutely has that. Yes. I don't think, however, that he is stamped as a starter at strong safety for 2024. I think that's Jonathan Abrams' spot right now. I think that what Jordan Howden does get, though, if he can play down in the box, is he gets the opportunity to continue to be that dime back, just like he was last year, and in continuing to do that. And the versatility that the Saints have right now in their safety room between Tyrann Mathieu, Jonathan Abram, Jordan Howden, and Will Harris. Just talking about those 4. There's more because you look at Miller Bradford and all the different places he can play, so on and so forth. But just looking at those 4, those guys, all 4 of those guys can play everywhere. And I think that's one of those things that I look at and go, man, that's one of the things that excites me. So the first question about what do I think about the safety depth? They've got 4 guys, maybe 5 that can play in a ton of different spots, which I think is really, really valuable.
And we always overlook JT Gray. I mean, he does something in the preseason like every year. But I mean, again, JT is not a guy that you would totally see playing safety. But again, I feel like it is a strong position. And again, considering what the offseason looked like and all this other stuff, I mean, they wanted Jonathan Abram back all along, and it was just a waiting game. And Abram had some teams that were interested in him. And so he came back to the Saints, and he's got a great opportunity. We knew what was going to happen with Marcus May. It just wasn't available. And he's still available. It's not that totally surprising, but it's one of those that it's unfortunate how it does pan out. But I do feel like the safety group has the potential. I think their secondary, if you get a healthy Marshon Lattimore, the secondary in general is one of the top units in the league. And that's not biased. But you look at Paulson Adebo, you look at Marshon Lattimore. Now, Alante Taylor in the slot, look, I think he's obviously he's still, adapting a good bit to it. But I think to appreciate about Alante is if he gets beat on one play, he comes right back. Like he'll make a play right afterwards. And so I think he's continuing to learn that position a good bit. And so, but the safety group is tremendous too. So I feel like that's a great spot for the Saints. And one of their strengths on the roster that you can look at and say, okay, yeah, I understand. I get that. And you had guys like Will Harris that could be in the mix as well. And Abrams, a smart player. I think he found a good role here. He found in a guy that, had to be humble a little bit, a former 1st-round pick, more of the practice squad. Then they move him up to the active roster and all this other stuff. And he gets his chance, put in all the film work last year. I mean, the dude was just, I think that's another prime example of what a good coach can do for a player, right?
Yep.
Is you learn from a guy like a Marcus Robertson, and then it suddenly you put it together, and look what happens. The Saints have done that over the years, and so it's not by mistake. It happens. So, getting more questions, man. So after minicamp next week, which is 3 days, Tuesday to Thursday, bug.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah. So Saints take a break until training camp in Irvine. Yeah, yes, it will be minicamp, and then we got the dreaded lull of no action until training camp, which should be, I think the rookies report on July 21st. Team will be there July 22nd. And then practices start on the 23rd. So, man, y'all see this, right? Like, I'm not tripping. But anyway, yeah, that's the plan. Like a little bug. I think it's one of these Formosan termites, man. It's weird. But yeah, guys, you just never know what's going to happen here.
Never know.
I want to talk about this guy, Lou Hedley.
Is great.
We talked about him last time, and I was excited about him. Looked really good again. Consistent over 4 hang time. Now, here's the thing. He was punting in situations where he was trying to down punts inside the 10, and he had some really good punts, but his hang times pretty impressive. I mean, we said we have a punter competition and we expect more from Matt Hayball, but Lou Hedley seems like he's getting some confidence, and I know what we get out of him in some aspects, and Hayball's got a stronger leg, and he's a checks notes left-footed punter, as we pointed out last week.
That's right.
But
that's right.
Hedley, let's talk about him, and what do you think that the outlook is for him?
Yeah, I think the thing that's really nice right now is that we're watching him, as Anthony points out in his question here. What's up, MLG? Is that Hedley's been spending the offseason also adding more traditional punting to his repertoire. And so the reason why I think this is important is because if you're pinned all the way back within your, inside your 30 or something like that, or inside the 30, and you're trying to, you got 70 yards to go downfield, rugby punt ain't going to help you. You know what I mean? You're giving over a good field position 9 times out of 10 in that case. Even if you keep a return from happening, you're punting maybe 40 yards in those cases. So adding more traditional styles of punting now gives you the opportunity to be able to punt your way out of a jam, which the Saints did not have last year. Like if the Saints were, if Hedley was punting out of his end zone, punting out of it, like the team's end zone, then you end up in a situation to where you might be giving the ball over near or beyond midfield, like in threatening territory. And so you want to stay away from that. And so him adding that distance punt, him adding those traditional styles of punting, I think will help him there. And today what we saw was a lot of really good location. That's something that stood out the most to me, like the coffin corner punts and all those things that we used to love back in the day that we don't see as much anymore. That I think is something that, like, if he can add that to his repertoire as well, then I think, yeah, he has a little bit of versatility that can help in better, that can be, so you can pick and choose how you want to impact how you can impact the game instead of just having one note, one thing that you can do. So that's why I think it's important that he's kind of added this more traditional punting style.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away too, but the Gunners they had some good gunner reps out there, like Cedric Wilson downing a punt inside the 5, and Lawrence Johnson, SEMO guy, he's looking pretty good out there. I like him. And I want to see more of him too. But there's so many different ones that are there. But I think Hedley, kind of what's going on and what's there. I think it's something we know it's going to be a legitimate competition, but we just got to wait and see how things play out. And so, again, I think he's looked good and impressive so far. The first time we saw him had a couple of inconsistencies. Like his first one was bad, and then he rebounded and then had like one in that frame, but it just happens that way. But I think he can be a somewhat better punter this year. But he's going to get challenged by Matt Hayball. Yeah,
big time.
Never thought I'd see this question, but what's the situation with Smoke Monday? He's in the CFL. He's not on
That's
the
right.
roster,
He's with the Alouettes.
Smoke Monday update. Yeah, so Smoke Monday update. Remember that? All stuff. But he's with a team. He's just not with the Saints. So,
and the Saints gave away his number too.
Right. Yeah. Millard Bradford is your new Smoke Monday. So that's not technically, but he's got the number.
Yes.
Ethan asked, what tight ends do you think will make the 53? I think it's pretty easy and straightforward, but a good question. Obviously we know Juwan, we know Foster. Right. I mean, we count Taysom in this group because the way he's been using, I don't know if I would. If I had to pick,
but I don't know if I would.
Yeah, and if I had to pick, the other one's Dallin Holker. I mean, he continues to run the first team. I get some, like Michael Jacobson's making some plays and stuff here and there.
Did have a nice catch.
Holker. Nice catch for a touchdown. Yep, absolutely. But I think it's Holker. But I don't think it's that surprising. I think they keep all those guys. Holker's just got to learn a little bit more on the blocking side, but they like using him in motion. They like him shifts. They do a lot of different things with Dallin Holker, and so I think for this offense, I'm not saying he's going to be anything crazy like a George Kittle or anything like that, but they get some production out of him behind Juwan. I think that's a win for this season, but I think right now that's got to be who my top guys are.
Yeah, completely agreed. No notes.
No
notes.
All right, so we've gotten through some of these questions. Let's talk about OTAs. We mentioned Charlie Smyth, not a particularly good day. Went 4 of 7. Yeah. That third kick was somewhat like we put a question mark. I think it was good. Personally, I would have given it the benefit of the doubt, but first kick was wide, and it was extra point. And then he had another one that was just a little bit wide to the right, and then one that was just way off target. And so,
way off to the left,
a tough day for him. And then he was learning, he was doing some of the kickoffs. And one of the things I wrote about and pointed out was really cool to see. And I said this to you during OTAs was the fact that Blake Grupe went up and was like coaching them in between the kickoffs, right? Like, I mean, showing some support, but Charlie Smyth, not a terribly good day for him. Do you make much of that? I mean, obviously there's pressure when Dennis Allen's right there watching you, like
Yeah.
literally sitting there right behind you. So
Right.
just you with me?
Yep.
But
Yep.
anything
Yeah.
make a big deal of it or not?
No, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it yet. I mean, like he's going to be around during training camp. He's going to be around
Yeah.
during training camp, and that's going to be the time to tally it up real.
Yes.
But it was it's been good to like get an eye on it and all that stuff. We'll count him up during mandatory mini camps next week too.
Yep.
But I think it's just one of those because we saw Groupie have this day last year
Yep.
too,
Yep.
and he went on to still beat out Will
Will
Lutz,
Lutz.
who
Yep.
was a big time incumbent, right? Had several years
Mhm.
on his senior, if you will. So I don't think that it's enough to say, okay, well, Charlie Smith's done because man, when he's on, it's big time
We talked
on.
about his
So
velocity last week and everything. It was just amazing.
it's crazy. So yeah, no, I wouldn't count him out just yet. I wouldn't be too concerned just yet if you're a Charlie Smith fan. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't worry too much either, but again, it's something to point out. Other things, I mean, we talked about Carr's day. He threw his first pick of camp. That was on a play where we're looking in red zone. It got tipped at the line. I think it was Colin Saunders or Kendall Vickers, but we asked DeMario afterwards. He said Payton Turner might have got it, but I don't know that for sure. But from our vantage point, it was a play where defense did a good job tipping it, and then Alante made a great play in the end zone, tipping it up, and DeMario gets the end zone pick. So, but other than that, Carr had some really good hookups to Chris Olave. Had 2 touchdowns to Chris Olave. I mean, he burnt Olave. I mean, burnt Alante on the route, and the other one was just a great throw and catch and all that other stuff. But anything that stood out about the quarterbacks today that you want to highlight? Because I mean, we talked about Rattler, Carr, pretty decent day, I guess, overall in some aspects, but
Yeah. I think the thing I would highlight is no false starts and no rehuddles at all. They got in and out of the huddle, good play calls, good cadence at the line of scrimmage. Everything was very clear. And they were able to execute. And then there was that play you were talking about where they had 3 different players go in motion and they executed it perfectly, everything. So like, I think those are the things that really stood out to me. Derek Carr, a few touchdowns, interception, 4 of 8 on the day. I had Spencer Rattler 3 of 4 with a touchdown, and then I had Jake Keener 5 of 7 with a touchdown, and then Nathan Peterman 1 of 2 with a pick in 7 on 7s. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me was you want to see the progression week 1, week 2, week 3, and getting more comfortable. I saw that. I think I saw that with them being able to, without the false starts, without the rehuddles, all this other stuff.
And that
and not being in the huddle too long. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. To Cedric.
Beautiful.
To Cedric Wilson. Yeah. That was outstanding.
And
that was on a play action too. They've continued to add motion and play action to Spencer Rattler's repertoire now. So he's getting more comfortable and settled into.
Yeah, for sure. And red zones were tough. Like, I mean, he was coming off of the drill, like where he didn't get to throw anything because the defense was playing extremely well, which I thought the defense did a pretty good job overall today. And so he was like, man, that was just good defense. So, and it was, I mean, the way they were playing and they were bringing some pressure. They were doing a lot of different things. And so again, you look at a mini camp, where's the progression? But like you said, seeing the week 1 version of Rattler, week 2, a little bit of a tough setback, and then I wouldn't say setback, but was playing a tougher outing for him. And then this week, rebounds in a pretty good way. I think that's a good sign for somebody like him. So, man. As far as it goes, anything else that stood out that maybe that we haven't covered or talked about for OTAs? I mean, I feel like we talk a lot about stuff, but I think overall, I think it was a good day.
Just another rookie to give an update on. Khristian Boyd again was awesome in the run game. Awesome in the run game. I mean, he is a terror in the run game, man. Like, it's awesome to watch. It feels like he's exactly what the team needs in that area. Like both physically in that area on the defensive interior, but also in like the run game, defense. And if they're trying to, I mean, not if they're trying, but because you're trying to get better there, after taking some steps back again last year in the run game or run defense, I think Khristian Boyd's been a nice addition. I don't know that he fixes your run defense. Obviously, everybody's got to be able to contribute to that on the defensive line, second level, all that, slot, everything. But he has been a really nice addition to the interior's defense when it comes to the run game.
Yeah, and there was a few players like highlighted, at least made one play today. I put that on Saints News Network, but some linebackers. Boyd was one of them, obviously, and so again, I think we're going to see more of that. And like you talked about, DeMario kind of, churching them up a little bit, giving them what they need to kind of perform. I think that's a great sign, and I think it also speaks to some of the character and what they're trying to accomplish this year. I mean, the defense is always chirping. It's always offense versus defense, and they razz each other when one has success over the other. And you get language we can't really repeat on here, but obviously fill in the blanks and such. But I think it's a cool sight to see that. And Boyd, I think that he's going to continue. I think the biggest thing, you see a lot of these rookies flash early, right? I think that's the good thing, is that it's not just the drafted guys, it's the undrafted guys too. And it's pockets. Some people are some days and some aren't, but it's good to see that. And when it gets to training camp, that's when you really want to see it, because that's kind of the ones that really, 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 really count. So
completely agree.
Anthony brings up, he wants to see Chris Berman say "Bub means business." I will throw one out for you. He's used this one before. If you remember, Natron means, from the then San Diego Charger, Natron means business. He's used that one, but that would be cool to see. Bub means business. But yes, FF fun fact for you today. Natron means, from the Chargers running back, when they had Marion Butts before him. They had a couple of other guys. So anyways, let me not go too much down that rabbit hole. But man, OTAs in the books, a lot of stuff we talked about. I think we covered most everything. We probably could talk for another hour if we wanted to and stuff. But Ross, as always, as we wind down, and if you have any parting questions, just put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them for you and such. But as we're winding down here, what you got working in cooking in the lab for Locked On, and anything that you're writing on right now?
Yeah, my episode for Locked On Saints tomorrow tells you is all about Demario Davis's impact on the defense. There was a couple of things that we made some allusions to, but how he challenged the defense and made them clamp up, and how everything that you've ever wanted to see the New Orleans Saints offense do was epitomized in one moment when Jamaal Williams made fun of the defense. That's all that I'll say. It was awesome. And I think it just said so much in that moment. And so I break all that down, as well as give you some more news and notes from training camp. And then writing wise, I'm going to take a look at kind of how the different options for the Saints. We kind of alluded to this. What are the different options that the Saints can utilize to, deal with the Tana Passanio situation? And then some of my conversation with Carl Granderson, as well as Marcus Robertson from today. So I'm writing up a couple different things on that. And I got a cool piece. Cooking on Andrew Janoko too, but it takes some research, so it's going to be a little while before that one's ready. But I'm really excited about it. What about you?
In the lab, he doesn't stop. In the lab. I got to get this question. Bub beans and rice. Red beans and rice. Bub beans and rice. That's a good one. I like that one. I love it. It's great. Same things as you, just looking at some of these things. I'm fascinated. We didn't totally talk a lot about Taysom Hill, but the fact that he took 3 tosses in the backfield today, and he was the single, like the lone tailback. He had Dallin Holker leading for him. He had Adam Prentice. I mean, that Taysom Hill thing is going to be probably bigger than we think about.
It's going to be a problem.
I'm so excited to see what that brings. And again, we talked about it early in the show, putting your players in a position to succeed. Like, they can put Taysom in every single position. And I turned to you, I said, I long for the day. I said that they're going to give a toss to Taysom, and he's going to just throw it, because he can do that. He can do that. And there's going to be a team that bites on him. And so bites on it. And so I just see that happening. But fascinating stuff with Taysom Hill. But again, more on OTAs and looking at some things, kind of looking at some of the players that really need to kind of step up here in the next, several weeks, and what we want to see there. And obviously what we want to see at minicamp. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out, from minicamp. And again, mandatory. I hope we get to see Marshon back. I hope we get to see Alvin back in the offense, because I think those two guys, you talk about two big guys that need to be on this roster and to come in here and buy into the program. I think Alvin will be fine. Marshon, I think, is the question mark, right? And I think Marshon will be fine too. But look, nobody's talking about him, right? And I mean, that's the thing is he got to come in here and work and get back to that status. And I think he can do it. He's just got to come in and do it, right? And I get the hurt. I get the understanding of things and some of the rumors we've heard and things that we were told about Marshon. It's unsettling in a little bit, but this is football. You got to show up. You got to do what you're paid to do, right? And Marshon's paid a good bit of money to do just that. So parting shots, thoughts, remarks,
man.
Anecdotes.
I'm just excited. I'm excited.
Limericks, haikus, anythings.
No. I guess I could hate on J. Cole again, but that would be about it.
Yeah, you could always do that, right?
Good
deal.
That's easy.
All right. Well, look, again, yes, please.
Let's get down to business. There you go. It's our favorite song that plays at Saints training camps, practices, all that. Let's get down.
If you ever see Mike Triplett, NOF, shout out to them. Make sure you tell him that that's your favorite song because he will absolutely 100% agree with you. Or Luke Johnson, you'll definitely hear. Luke's got a better attitude to share about it. Mini camp next week. We got 3 days straight, and so I don't know 100% what our show's schedule is going to look like, but you could get 3 straight episodes. I don't know if they'll be as long because of so much information, but we got 3 days of good football coming Tuesday to Thursday. We'll be there. And he said to defeat the Huns, he said, oops, wrong song.
So good.
Happens. But 3 days of mini camp. We got plenty of stuff that'll happen between now and then. But look, we're here. We're here in the long haul. And so it's a good time to be covering this team. And we love doing that. We love covering this team for you guys. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you got suggestions, questions, comments, remarks, all the things, we'll take them into consideration. If it's a suggestion, maybe, but as long as you guys continue to come back, we will be here. So
we'll be here.
On behalf of Ross Jackson, I am John Hendrick signing out for another episode of Second and Saints. Y'all be good people and have a good week. We will talk at you very, very soon.